Bienvenidos, mis muchachitos, to San Antonio Public Library Rocks. Of course, this is a podcast all about the wonderful music medium, the compact disc, as it pertains in particular to the racks here at the San Antonio Public Library. My name is Michael DeWitt. I am one of your three intrepid hosts, here to present to you our three individual choices for CD of the Month that we have individually procured from the pre-aforementioned racks at this beautiful public library in the heart of Texas. We've spent a month listening to this music only for the goal of giving you our favorite track from each, along with some detailed, in-depth musical analysis to follow. Now, before we dive in any deeper into this program, it would be remiss of me not to introduce you to number 2 and number 3 on the docket. To my left and to my right, I have a number 2 and I have a number 3. And right now, in their minds, they're wondering, am I number 2? Am I number 3?
I'm absolutely wondering that. Candy, are you also wondering that?
Neither is a good option.
This doesn't. I've never been. I feel ranked now, and I'm not a fan of that. I thought we were all on. Maybe you're a little bit higher up, but we're in some sort of a level playing field, and now it feels like there's a little bit of unnecessary competition that's been added to our dynamic.
And I can't help but think about the bathroom lingo. So.
Ooh, yes. The archetypes of the bathroom lingo. We have number 2, known as the poo, and we have number 3, which I believe is liquid from all ends, or what's number 3?
That's number 4.
That's number 4.
3 is just
I've heard
good old-fashioned diarrhea.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me remove all mystery and doubt from the equation. Introducing my diarrhea on this hosting team, Candy Coco, how are you?
Oh, I'm honestly, I'm relieved that I'm not the diarrhea.
Here I am, number 3, the woman always gets the lowest rank on the totem pole. Don't worry, I'm used to it. I work in a bureaucracy. So, yes, here I am. I'm just me. I'm imperfect. I'm a singer. I'm a librarian. I'm Candy Coco. And it's a little earlier in the morning than we're used to recording here in San Antonio.
That is true.
I got some sleepies in my eyes still.
But it's never too early to love music.
And now we present the firm, lumpy host, the poo, Tom Parrott. How are you?
I'm swell, Michael. And I will say I think because of the way you framed it, now I'm a lot more on board with being called the poo of the podcast. Because now it's like, oh, I'm in this realm of safety.
I'm glad you've embraced this prism through which we are viewing each of our positions. But
That means you're the pee.
Exactly. I was going to say, you're both acting a little downtrodden, a little defeated. And I want to remind you, I am urine. There's no prestige in being the golden,
Yeah,
warm,
there is. It's
velvety textured liquid.
See, listen to all the descriptors that you can use to describe urine. What did you describe me as? Lumpy, firm. I'm a bad mattress.
I would just like to apologize for bringing this up at all.
Apology accepted on behalf of this podcast and untoward or fortoward every listener who's still with us right now. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, we've introduced each of us. It's been a little overshadowed by the bathroom prism by which we've viewed ourselves for a moment here.
I do love that bathroom prism they installed in the rooms over at the
Excuse me.
at the River Walk at the River Center.
Yes, it's part of the Science Museum. It started to reach its little tendrils out and doing these public installations, starting with, and most of the budgeting has gone towards, the bathroom prism.
It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of artwork I think I've ever seen in San Antonio.
Oh, I'm yet to see it.
Well, I think it's only in the men's room right now, so I can escort you in there if you like, so you can take a look, and nobody will be nobody would be untoward about it. Or we could just convince the museum to put it in the ladies' room as well.
That would be lovely.
See what we can do.
So, you've heard our voices, folks, and it would also be remiss of me not to remind you that, as you've just heard, all three of us are self-appointed docents of this beautiful city we call San Antonio. And through our love for this city, it extends to the public library, and it extends to music as well. We are three deep music aficionados, and we, in just a moment, are going to unleash some of that aficionado-ness through our analysis of each of our individual favorite tracks and CDs of the month. But unfortunately, we're going to have to bring the discussion to a topic that personally I'm not super eager to broach, but it's unavoidable because it appears that a group out there, not in San Antonio, but out there in the world, has been infringing upon our trademarks.
Boo. I wish I had the opposite of clapping for the soundboard. All I have is that still. Which sounds like it's a little bit of surprise. That's the way I felt when I heard somebody was infringing upon our rights. I went, what?
To me, it kind of drifts my mind toward the old cartoon Darkwing Duck. And I feel as if maybe I've assumed like my knight superhero, crime fighter persona, and I'm about to go out and resolve this issue we have. Can you play that one more time? All right, no one has to agree with that or follow me down on that road. But what we are going to take a look at here now, and we're being serious now, is the road ahead of us. And as you know, when there are legal matters involved, and we'll get into the specifics in just a moment, but when you have a legal matter, you don't want to travel down that road alone. And luckily for us, we have all of the resources of the public library and the city of San Antonio. And
that's right.
Right here, in just a moment, we are going to speak with our concierge, our Sherpa down this road of legalities. And as we introduce them, we can get into more of the particulars of what trademarks and rights are being infringed and upon by whom. Does that sound like...
Whom of which?
By whom of which. And I apologize for being vague here, but before we bring on our legal export...
He has been exported from the city's attorney's office.
That's right.
To come here and talk to us.
Before we bring him in, I don't want to say anything that can harm our case. That's why I've been kind of beating around the bush, per se.
You're pleading the fifth.
I'm pleading the fifth until we introduce this gentleman, who, by the way, his only availability was in this 1 hour block that happens to be when we reserve the room for the podcast. That's why we're going to have our consultation here on the podcast. It's
right.
The only time the timing's worked out. But
if there's one thing I've learned from watching all those YouTube videos of people getting arrested for smoking weed in their car, it's that you should never talk to a cop unless there's a lawyer present, and you should never talk unless there's a lawyer present on any legal matters. Which is I'm so glad that we're able to do that today.
Without any further ado, I want to introduce our legal counsel, Mr. Michael Barnett.
Yes, thank you. Michael Barnett, your legal concierge from the city attorney's office, the great city of San Antonio.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you for all you've done to keep us safe.
I think you misunderstand the function just off the top of the city attorney's office.
And I want to say the way they treated you in the 70s, repulsive.
So, first of all, I have several points from having listened to the opening of this august broadcast and having heard the introduction surrounding bathroom lingo. I absolutely would be shocked if anyone at the library or the city would have hesitation being associated with this show. I have been an export from the city attorney's office, as you said, but also exported from San Antonio. I was born and raised. You'll notice not a trace of an accent or a twang because I was exported in high school from Sidney Lanier High School, of course, named for our great Confederate poet. Traded to a high school in Cupertino, California, where speech and debate coach, forensics coach Sharon Prefontaine scrubbed every last ounce of regional dialect from my speech. What was I traded for? I hear you ask, for a year's supply of Gatorade for the athletic department.
Wow, that is fascinating. And also, your level of hearing is so... I whispered under my breath.
Let me cut you off right there because I never learned anything hearing myself talk. Listening is the key to any good lawyer's trade. It's the number one tool in our toolbox.
Speak on that. Mic drop moment.
So now that we have you here, Michael, and just to avoid any confusion, because I am Michael DeWitt as well. And our listeners...
You're the only Michael DeWitt.
That's right.
Let's put an end to the... I mean, this is where these complications, these confusions regarding the law arise. Carefully chosen words are the tools of our profession. You are the only Michael DeWitt associated with this particular show.
Right. And I do think we should lay out what, as you mentioned, what is exactly going on where we are being infringed upon.
And if you're trying to avoid confusion within this show in terms of address, please feel free to address me as my colleagues do down at the city attorney's office, Master Barney.
Master Barney. Okay. Tom, you were about to pull us to sort of the specifics of this legal case, but I'm going to have to put that on another pause because I just heard something interesting. So are you... Around the office, you're a jovial person. You get along with them casually. Do you have external hobbies that maybe would have led to this name, Master Barney?
Well, my life is an open book with large print. I don't think I have to tell you that. And down there at the city attorney's office, and when we say down there, we mean the St. Mary Street office.
Of course.
There's 4 different departments: prosecution, litigation, regulatory, commercial. I must probably address the elephant in the room as your legal concierge. I have no direct knowledge or experience with the issue that you are facing. Okay. I come from a different division within the city attorney's office.
Which division?
But within each division, of course, there's a department, and I'm pretty sure it's the CYA department that sent me so that if I misspeak or misread the issues you're facing, they have plausible deniability. Because let's remember something very important about the city attorney's office. They do not work for you. They are not interested in your well-being or your rights as members of the citizenry.
Interesting.
They work for the city. They are the attorneys for the city, to protect the city, to represent the city in any kind of litigation or regulation questions. So if you are being infringed upon in your official capacity as self-proclaimed docents, then there is an overlap with what we do at the city attorney's office. But if it's you as citizens, you're on your own. And of course, my expertise, to get back to the question of which division, my expertise is in property law.
I see.
And you might ask, what does that have to do with this? Well, this was deemed an intellectual property issue, and they felt that my property law background, I do a lot of work with easements and setbacks and whatnot.
Eminent domain, that kind of thing.
Well, that would be, again, more intellectual property. So no, not anything that I've trained for.
Oh, I thought eminent domain was like physical stuff. Like if I wanted to build something but the railroad got in the way, then I could go yoink and take the railroad away. Is that not... I don't...
If you made that sound in front of a certain number of witnesses, yes, you would be able to take the railroad away. Though ordinarily it would be to build the railroad.
Okay, I get it now. Thank you.
I do enjoy eminent domain history. I just don't get the opportunity to practice it.
So what I'm gathering here is that you don't have any hobbies.
Well, look, you don't come to San Antonio for the hobbies, and you certainly don't stay for them.
Okay, it seems like maybe, and we're not here to push on you. And make
I
you feel
love
comfortable.
music. Ironically, I do love music. And I don't want to get out over my skis on this, but there has been a complaint circulating around the office amongst our 50-plus lawyers, our 25 staff people, that certainly a written and formal apology to Walter Becker and Donald Fagen should be in the offing, given your last episode, where really short shrift was paid to their influence as really the seminal band that made progressive rock safe for the jazz fusion crowd.
Well, okay, I need to come clean. I wasn't completely honest in the last episode. Donald Fagen, I was on a cruise with Donald Fagen.
Wait a minute. You weren't honest about that at all last episode, Candy.
not
You did
at
not
all.
mention that you were on this cruise.
This was a deep, dark secret I've been harboring. In the Dominican Republic in 1984, Donald Fagen approached me after my cabaret act on the Carnival Dominican Republic cruise. And he wanted to court me. And he wrote poetry. He wrote me a song. And I was in a relationship at the time and had to turn him down.
Wow.
So, it's a touchy subject, and I get a little defensive surrounding Steely Dan. I genuinely didn't know it had to do with a dildo. I thought it had to do with the steel drums. That's on me, and I was a lazy looker-upper in terms of librarian mode. But as a musician, my heart is tender, and I missed an opportunity to be with a great, legendary musician for a relationship that turned out to really be more about a man who wanted free cruises.
And because of that, you, in the moment, last episode, minimized the influence on bringing the coolness to jazz fusion, bringing the rock.
I
and
did.
melding the two.
You know that I love jazz.
We all know you.
We
love
all
jazz.
know you love jazz. Any regular listener to this podcast knows that you love jazz.
I love jazz.
All right, so we still don't know why you're called Master Barney, but we'll keep moving on here.
I think that apology will be certainly very well received by, of course, my boss, my employer, the city attorney for San Antonio, battling Andy Segovia, as we call him, because his name is Andy Segovia.
Every time I keep thinking you're going to start a story about why your name's Master Barney, but it never seems to go
You
there.
gotta just let that one go.
All right.
It was a nickname given to me. I don't want to go too deep into the details. After attending undergraduate at the UCLA University, I did my law degree at the Wake Forest, which I think is in Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem, that's correct.
I know it's North Carolina. I did most of it by correspondence.
Oh, I see.
But I did do a semester at the American University where I studied under the tutelage of Barlow Burke, the legendary property law professor who literally wrote the book on property law. And it was from him that I was given the name Master Barney when, during a particularly rough time, he assessed my work quality and said, "Well, you're certainly no Master Barney," and the nickname Master Barney has stuck ever since.
Okay, so it's an ironic term. It's like when someone is big and they call them tiny as an ironic nickname.
That was actually a major step up. Ordinarily, when one failed to live up to his standards, his legitimately unparalleled standards, you would get nothing more than a stern wag of the finger and the two-word response: not good.
Wow, it's a world I'm not used to, because here at the library normally, and here in San Antonio, we're all very friendly folks. We say what's on our mind. We use more than 2 words if we, have an interaction with someone.
We got some good sentence construction amongst us.
That's right.
We go a little long sometimes. We do a little run-on.
Speaking of construction, let's construct ourselves and let's lay out the facts here of the legal case. Now that we've met Master Barney and we kind of have his backstory, it has been brought to our attention that there is a group of, is it improvisers? Is that the term that they use? Improvisers? Is that their dirty term, how they call themselves?
Is it improviser or improver?
It may be improver.
I think they are condescendingly saying that they are improvers because they're trying to improve upon something that's already reached great heights.
A group of Los Angeles improvers have started a podcast, and I use that term loosely because it's more like 3 imbeciles babbling into a brook to no one.
You ever hear that expression, if a tree falls in the forest, does it even make a sound? That's how I feel these 3 jokesters have started their podcast up.
That's
Quote
right.
unquote podcast. They're just podcasting in the woods, and all of a sudden it's not making any actual sense.
Their podcast name is Michael, Tom, and Candy Rocks. And in this podcast, these 3 improvers impersonate myself, Michael DeWitt, my poop, Tom Parrott, and my diarrhea, Candy Coco.
I am so sorry I brought that up.
I like it. I am always looking for a good analogy, and I think it's important because on this other podcast, there is no golden shower. They start at 4.
Oh.
Right. There is no golden shower of the podcast.
Oh, no.
Like Mr. DeWitt.
Oh,
on
they
that
went right
show.
to 4?
They go right to 4.
Oh, no.
That is,
I don't even know if we're legally allowed to talk about 4 other than just in numerical terms, because we are still under some degree of like public decorum. That's crazy.
Well, we are neither for nor against.
Oh, now you weren't prepared with
my mind got blown too quick for me to hit that right on time.
There we
Damn.
go.
This is why I should be watching more legal YouTube videos and less people getting arrested YouTube videos.
so the individual who plays me, Michael DeWitt, on this unsanctioned, unauthorized podcast about our real lives.
And can we get into, before you say that, the punctuation? It's quote, Michael, Tom, and Candy, internal quote, rocks, internal quote, rocks, quote. So it's rocks. It's a condescending
It's condescending, and that's
It's
one
a
of the things I hated about
quote-unquote
it.
Rocks, but they were grammatically correct in doing the single internal quote within a quote.
People don't often do that, and I will say the one thing I do appreciate is they understand how punctuation is supposed to be used. Clearly, they've been reading some Strunk and White.
This podcast, it features our likeness, our trademark. However, none of the information other than our names is accurate at all. It's exaggerated, and it's...
Not to mention, they're also saying they're based out of Pflugerville.
Where even is Pflugerville?
Pflugerville is barely the hill country. We're here in San Antonio in the heart of the hill country of Texas. Pflugerville is north of Austin.
Well,
That's where that tech money lives.
it's wherever they've said it, it's not accurate to our lives. And I'm worried, and this is why I've brought you here, Master Barney, because what if our friends and family in our community stumble upon this podcast and they say, oh, Michael's talking about starting a degree in city planning. And then they call me on my cell phone and they say, "Oh, congratulations, you've started a degree on city planning." And I say, "I've done nothing of the sort." And then they tell me, "No, I heard about it on your podcast." Double open quote, single open quote, Michael, comma, Tom, comma, and Candy, close single quote, close double quote.
I think you're getting too caught up. Candy laid it out very easily and perfectly, and you're so riled up you can't even remember where the punctuation goes.
But Master Barney, what happens in that scenario where I would have gotten that right and finished my original thought?
Well, listen, I mentioned that we work as the lawyers for the city. We are not in any charter, in any city throughout this great country, the United States of America.
Right.
For my money, one of the top 10 countries in the world. We are not interested in the rights of the citizenry. As you'll recall, just a few months ago, when Andy Segovia took heavy fire for undermining democracy by constantly undermining the will of the voters, we said, not our job, not our bailiwick being concerned about the will of the voters.
I see.
We are interested in the livelihoods of city officials in the city charter itself. Now, in your capacity, official capacity, as unofficial self-proclaimed docents of the library system, would you say that this other, let's call it a podcast, this other alleged podcast, does it rise to the level of a tax law infringement? Probably not.
No.
Does it involve municipal annexations? Possibly we could say that they were annexing something from you, but they've left you still the ability to do your own show. So I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I think that means that our ability to advise you, to represent you, falls into that third category where we may legally advise city officials, even those who are unofficial and self-proclaimed. And that would be in the category of nuisances. What you just described, Mr. DeWitt,
Yes.
is something that would, at the very least, rise to the level of nuisance in your personal life, and possibly in your professional one as well. So, yes, the city attorney's office is always on the lookout and ever so willing to litigate against those who are nuisances, those who present a nuisance, those who are members of nuisance.
Well, please, yes, let's give a round of applause to that, because that was music to my ears, because it just verifies and affirms all the feelings and emotions I've had over the last 48 hours since I learned of this podcast. And I use that term loosely, of course.
Alleged podcast. I think we can safely say alleged in front of it now.
Alleged. So we have the city on our side under this third category you've just shared with us, Master Barney. What's our first steps? How do we let these folks know that we won't stand for this nuisances?
As an individual, you might wish to reach out to them. You might wish to lead with. There's a phrase that we have in the city attorney's office called "killing with kindness." It's a phrase we try to avoid at all costs. You, as an individual, might want to reach out to them and say, "Hey, good for you. You're a podcaster. You do a show. In fact, I've listened to it. Very amusing. However, I have a little bit of a problem that maybe you could help me with." As an individual, that might be your instinct in terms of how to reach out to your fellow human being and how to amicably come to an agreement. In a city's attorney's office, we advise against that strongly. We say go to the nuclear option immediately. It's always easier to back off once you've scorched the earth as much as you possibly can.
It's better to ask forgiveness than ask permission.
Cease and desist right off the top.
I see.
With the maximum penalties associated, clearly delineated in that cease and desist.
Yeah, scare them. So this Ricardo Feliciano, this Jay Light, this Lily Holloman, what kind of names are those?
The first one to me sounds Latin or Hispanic, but I looked at this individual's picture online, and they look like a standard average old white guy.
Well, I do think you've opened the door to some potential problems by, for example, the last name on your list, Lily Holloman, by identifying this individual as a shamanic overlord in previous versions of this particular show. You've created, therefore, a de facto relationship, professional or otherwise.
Oh, it's this parasocial nonsense all coming together again. Are we sure these aren't just crazed fans of ours who are trying to get our goat?
This is a fan that is mimicking my shamanic overlord, and she's not happy.
And now that I'm being reminded, haven't every week you, Tom, have directed people to Jay Light's Instagram?
Yeah, but this is clearly a different Jay Light.
But it's a fan who's impersonating this person that you seem so inordinately concerned with sharing their social medias on our airtime, this Mr. Jay Light. So they're impersonating Jay Light. But I'm noticing that first name, Ricardo Feliciano, has never really been promoted or talked about on the podcast. Is this the actual person who is
might
behind
be
it all?
pulling the strings.
The mastermind, the number one.
Speaking of number one,
The battling Andy Segovia of the podcast world.
Yeah, sounds like it.
speaking of Andy Segovia, I think this is a nice point for us to transition into more music for our ears, not of the legal kind, but of the compact disc kind. And if you have time, Master Barney, if you'd like to enjoy some music with us, please feel free to stick around.
My meter is running.
Let's show these unprovers. I'm going to call them unprovers because they're unproven. Now let's show them what
love that.
what we can do that they cannot absolutely do.
That's right. You can improve that. I've started a 4-year degree in city planning, but what you can't do is kick the mic to Candy Coco for our first song of the month, CD of the month. Candy Coco, what do you have for us?
Wow, that this is 2 months in a row where I'm first.
It's not. I'm not overcompensating for you being last every other month. This is just the way we do it here. You're
Look,
first again, Candy.
There's a part of me, a deep, wounded woman inside that would defer and say, no, please, someone else. But I am training myself to take that bull by the horn and say, yes, I have the power here. So, here's I, as Mr. Master Barney, may have mentioned, may have not, I don't remember if he mentioned this on air, but I was in the path of a different album completely, and then I got a call from someone I also suspect is involved in our puppet podcast in Los Angeles. He is a San Antonio native. His name is Brandon Burkhart. And I like to joke with him. I say, why Burkhart? Why not Burkidney? No one else laughs. But he is leaving for the great city of Angels tomorrow. He got a job writing for the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And he kind of condescendingly invited me to his going away karaoke party. Because I do suspect he's involved in this Los Angeles podcast. And so I chose as a karaoke song Brandy by Looking Glass, but sang Brandon instead. So this is the direction things are going. I present to you by Looking Glass, Brandy.
She serves them whiskey and wine. They say, Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. Such a fine girl. Your eyes could steal a sailor from the sea. Brandy wears a braided chain made of finest silver from the north of Spain.
Okay, there you have it. Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. You know, I have spent much of my life on the seas. And in some ways, I feel like the captain in this scenario, leaving my various lovers adrift and wishing for me. I mean, in my mind, anyway, that makes me feel better.
Now, to avoid any future addendums or corrections in other episodes,
Corrections.
have you had any sort of dalliances or near dalliances with any of the members of the band Looking Glass?
Or with anybody named Brandy.
Well, I do confess that I tried to have a dalliance with Elliot Lurie, the lead guitar, because who wouldn't? And the vocals. This is the lead vocalist on Brandy. You know, I did pursue him and was roundly rejected. And I'm here to tell you that I will admit that on a national broadcast, which this isn't. This is recorded. But
It is still available to the nation, though.
that's true. So I do confess that Elliot Lurie roundly rejected Candy Cocoa, but I won't let that get in the way of my enjoyment of this song, which was by Looking Glass. This is their premiere album, Looking Glass, formed in 1969 at Rutgers University, part of the New Jersey Sound, if you will. And I have to say, I pursued Elliot because he only does lead vocals in 2, maybe 3 of the songs on this full album, and he's got the music in him. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
And he, in fact, left shortly thereafter the group to pursue a solo career that nobody really knows about. And the group went through many, many different names. It was a bit of a mess after he left. It went from Looking Glass to Fallen Angels to Stars with a Z.
Like the television network.
Exactly. But they all circled back together in 1995, as you do, when they realized that they shouldn't have messed with the original group to begin with.
That is fascinating that after, presumably, Brandy, I am familiar with the song. I presume it was a hit.
It was number 1.
Exactly.
Yes, it went gold. It went gold.
To want to change your identity or rebrand, as we say in these days, where all of us are so aware of marketing and how it applies to artistic pursuits. That is fascinating. I don't know if that means they're bold or dumb.
Well, I think that they were maybe the lead singer who, you know, I don't think highly of because you rejected me, Elliot. I think he maybe took the credit and took the credit with him. Maybe he didn't want to want them to have Looking Glass after he left. You know, I'm just spitballing here, but an inflated ego will ultimately be your undoing, sir, Mr. Lurie, and Godspeed, Mr. Burkhart. You know, in his life in Los Angeles, trying to undermine our podcast.
From a legal standpoint, when an individual leaves a group and they want the remaining members to pursue a future with the remaining group under a different visage or guise, what legal rights does an individual artistic creator have to sort of enforcing that will upon the remaining members?
Although I ordinarily enjoy a hypothetical, especially a legal hypothetical, I have to admit that the length of that question outlasted my interest in it.
Okay,
so
that's all you got to say. That's all you got to say.
I did lose myself. This is a song and a band that opens up a great number of potential legal problems. Fortunately, Candy avoided one of the major ones. There's a common refrain that this song was based on a real woman and a grave site in New Brunswick, New Jersey, where the band was based. And that is completely fallacious. It's based on a fallacy, what I mean.
I thought it was based on a consummated sex act between.
No, and that is another popular myth that we need to avoid. We need to avoid when discussing. It is the hypothetical I would like to address about them being dumb or them being smart. I hit you with a follow-up. I respond with a hypothetical. What does it say about them that their only chart-topping hit was in fact a B-side and not a single?
It seems like they actually don't have that much confidence in themselves. If that's the case,
Interesting.
you put that on the B side.
Also, I would need the court reporter to play back the previous recordings, but I do believe this is the second time that Stars with a Z has been mentioned on this particular show, though I could be mistaking it with the other alleged podcast.
Listen, I'm going to take you to task on this. I may have listened to this on CD, so I'm not completely aware whether this was on the back of the record, which is the B-side. But it is song number 2 on the album, so it seems like unless Jenny Lynn took up the whole first side of the record, that your fact is incorrect, sir.
No, so a single is 2 songs, a 45 RPM single, and that's what, when we say it's a number 1 song, it has nothing to do with album sales.
That's crazy
or
that that's
album
legal,
plays.
by the way. They say it's a single. They got 2 songs on it. Why wouldn't you just put 1 song on it? It's a single.
There are 2 sides. There are 2 sides to every story, and there are 2 sides to every single.
This is why I didn't go into the law.
I see. So what you're saying is the single they released, not the album I listened to in full from the library that I checked out last night after this whole karaoke thing happened. So you're saying they released a single and Brandy was on the back. What was the front?
Well, this opens up, again, a legal can of worms that we're not allowed to address.
I think that seems like that's a good sign that we need to move along. If we're getting into legal can of worms territory.
No, I was enraptured by this exchange. I thought I was watching some classic Perry Mason unfold in front of my eyes. Not the part where he, is out in the world doing things, but the part where he's in the courtroom.
So sad to me as a legal scholar when Perry Mason was reduced to the wheelchair.
I didn't know that.
I've never watched Perry Mason. I got to get on that.
I'm not a lawyer, so I have no empathy for it. All right, so let's move on next. I'll go next.
Okay.
My song comes from an album called Hopeless Romantic by a band named The Bouncing Souls. And the track is the title track off this album. And let's just listen to it. Let's just listen to it.
Wow, that riff at the very end, that was a nice held note.
It lasted a while, did it not? But I'll tell you what didn't last a while, Tom. Something changed between 1969 and 1999 in this little state of New Jersey, because things went from a classical sound to this raucous, uproarious punk rock sound. The Bouncing Souls are from New Brunswick, New Jersey.
I got chills.
Now, I can't rule out the possibility that at one point in time, Looking Glass had changed their name to the Bouncing Souls, released 12 full lengths, and then changed their name back to Stars. But all other context clues says these are 2 different bands. This band, the Bouncing Souls, punk rock band from the late 90s. They're still active today. The reason I selected this album when I was browsing the racks is because the cover itself is of the 4 members of the band with a sans serif basic font that says The Bouncing Souls Hopeless Romantic on it. And it's one of these album covers where you look at it and it feels like it's always existed. There's something classical about it, to say the word classical twice in 2 different meanings, where you guys, let's open it up. Have you ever experienced that before, where you see a piece of art or you see an album cover and intellectually you know this was released at a certain date, but to you in your life, it feels like it's always existed?
Well, you know, Michelangelo, the great sculptor and painter of the Italian Renaissance, he always said that he didn't carve sculptures. He released the images from the marble. He released it into this conscious realm.
That's beautiful.
So, in a way, all art already exists.
Yeah, it's just about tuning in your spectral antenna to pull it from the universe.
Yes.
And I think much in this way, this specific release from the band, The Bouncing Souls, embodies that. The sound is upbeat. There's lots of distortion, but there is something timeless to it, at least to myself, where it sounds like it could have come out in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I was just inhaling.
All right. I had my eyes closed, but I heard an
It
inhale.
sounded like you were gonna say something.
No, I was gonna wait. I was just inhaling. I'm sorry to get your hopes up that I had something more
I was
profound
so
to say.
excited. The other
I
thing,
inhale off mic.
she just did it.
And see, that's the professionalism that Candy brings with her years of performing experience.
I can't argue with that.
The other thing that attracted me to this album, and this song in particular, is the concept of a hopeless romantic. And now, Candy, not to make everything about your personal romantic life, but to me, based on the stories you've shared on the podcast, I feel like you could qualify as a hopeless romantic.
I think I would agree with that, you know?
I actually think Candy has a lot of hope.
That's a great, you know what? I'm changing my tune right there. You know, you see Elliot Lurie on the street corner in front of the 7-Eleven, and you come up to him and you just say, to hell with it, I'm going to kiss you right on the lips without an introduction, and then you get a restraining order. There's always a chance that could be lifted.
Yeah, that's a hopeful attitude.
Sometimes when they're taking paper documents and digitizing them onto the computer, things get lost. And there are restraining orders that just evaporate overnight and no one knows what happened. And it's possible this could occur to one's own restraining order, which would legally allow them to re-engage in the harassing behavior that they've been prevented from.
Well, I do actually think there's one person here who might know what happens to those restraining orders.
And you know
get
what?
lost in the
Rumor has
digitizing
it that that's the real backstory behind the nickname Master Barney. Am I right? I'm winking right now. You can't see, but I'm winking.
That's a strong wink. I can see that wink
You're
from
also
over here.
digging your high heel into his foot.
We do at the city attorney's office know what happens to every document that's digitized or not digitized.
Hold on. Are you floating the possibility that there are no mistakes in the digitization process of paper records?
Is this like a...
There are
when-
never mistakes, as the great Barlow Burke taught me during my semester abroad in Washington, D.C.
Was he the Confederate poet you alluded to earlier?
That's the
Sidney Lanier.
Sidney Lanier. Barlow Burke is the gentleman who gave Master Barney
the law
name.
professor. Yes, now I don't even remember what he said, other than to tell me that there are no mistakes. There are simply opportunities.
Sorry for the opportunity there.
I am uncomfortable, I must admit, from a legal standpoint, about that particular musical selection because I am not certain the artist's stance on municipal health regulations. There does seem to be some advocacy of violating some of the municipal health regulations. On the other hand, again, artistic license, irony, it could go either way. But that said, I did like the noise that it made.
It was a very pleasant noise. I was jiving, jumping around a little bit in my seat here.
Yeah, they are known for introducing sort of a dancey, what they call pogo element to punk rock music, which made them very popular locally. And at shows, people would be able to bounce up and down and enjoy the pleasantness inherent in more a raucous format. But speaking of municipalities, there is a lyric here that says, "Beer and wine does me fine, but it doesn't always do. When I get back up and dust off, I always come back to you." And I don't know if there's a license that's required for this lyric, since it does reference beer and wine, or if there's any environmental concerns with dusting off.
The environmental concerns and the health regulations probably are expressed more in a more troublesome way with "I'm kind of lazy and I kind of stink."
Going back to what you've said, isn't stink an odorous nuisance of sorts? Aren't you essentially, much like a volume noise ordinance is, there is a smell tolerance ordinance in play?
I feel like that's a new realm of legal framework.
Nuisances.
Well, the smell ordinance.
Justice has a smell. Justice is blindfolded. Lady Justice is blindfolded.
Correct.
And as you know,
that heightens the senses.
You more than anyone, it heightens all the other senses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I can imagine
and
that.
I say you more than anyone because of the smells
converted,
at the converted
exactly,
Whataburger.
the converted Whataburger. And I will say that's the smells there linger and evoke a sense memory in a way that I like when I heard this person singing about being lazy and stinking. Like I pictured a person because I've seen people who are lazy and stink before, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know who that is.
Battling Andy Segovia when he steps down at some point and retires and writes his memoirs about his glorious days as the chief counsel for General Motors when they went bankrupt. He is going to, I have it on good authority, name that book "The Smell of Justice."
Interesting.
I'm a little concerned about the precedent of a legal framework that is inherently self-incriminating as one that smell would be under Ordinance B-9-4, which outlays that he who reports a crime of smells has committed
said crime.
said crime.
Well, you know what? Maybe you should just be more tactful about smell crime. If you're going to be the one who's reporting, then don't be consorting.
It's a reasonable person's standard that we have to address.
Like pornography. Like if you know pornography when you see it, you know obscenity when you see it, you know a bad smell when that smell has been dealt.
At least in Texas.
Obscenity. Now that I can get on board with.
Speaking of getting on board, Tom, why don't you hop aboard now and share with us your CD of the month?
Choo choo, the train is leaving the tracks. Everybody get on board with my pick from the New Music Bin. This is an album that was released in, I believe, 2009? Excuse me just for a moment. I just want to make sure I get it right. It's by the band Phantogram. That's spelled Phantogram. This album is Island Movies, 2010, which is, of course, why we have it in the new releases bin now. And the song, there's a lot of really great songs on this album, especially if you're in sort of like a darker, poppy or electronic-y kind of a mood. But the thing that really, the song that really stuck out to me this week, as we've been dealing with this new legal situation that we have stumbled into by accident, just by being ourselves and somebody trying to imitate us and infringe upon our rights as official docents of the San Antonio Public Library System. And also all of these videos of people getting arrested that I keep watching on YouTube. And there's a song on here called Running from the Cops that I really enjoy, and I think y'all will enjoy as well.
That was beautiful, Tom. I love the combination of the hip hop beats with a little bit of discordant synth underneath, with the female vocals. It reminded me a little bit of the late '90s when there'd be, I don't remember the name of the band, but there was a song called I think Six Underground. Remember that song? Take me down. 6 underground, the ground beneath my feet.
I don't remember that song, but it does sound like a nice song. If your rendition of it is anything like the actual version.
And I didn't know you sang, Michael. I mean,
didn't.
why I need to fold you into my act. I need you as backup.
Well, I don't really consider it singing. I consider it more revealing the voice that's always been there.
It's a song the body knows.
That's right.
Yes, and if I didn't know any better, based on this song, I would think running from the cops was quite a pleasant thing to do. It's very relaxing. It's very soothing. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're turning this thing around, guys.
I think the real crux for me of why this song stood out is because there's this, you mentioned it, the sort of discordant synth undertone in the beats, and it feels like there's almost an arrhythmic aspect to the song, but it all comes together and it works. And then the title is also in discord with the actual lyrics of the song, which don't sound threatening at all.
Exactly.
It all blends to make you feel like there's this sense of tension that you feel when you hear the title of a song, Running from the Cops, when you hear that sort of like chonky bass line coming in and the weird synths, but then you hear the music and you're like, oh, it's all gonna be okay.
You can imagine how just the title alone made my legal sphincter
absolutely
tighten. And yet it is such an entirely now groove.
It really is.
There is a form of self-massage where one tightens said sphincter and releases. And I can't speak to the legal
I cannot tell you how many judges do just that.
Judges be doing Kegels?
Rendering verdicts.
Is that why they...
No, I mean, I can't tell you.
Oh, you
I
okay.
can't.
Legally not allowed.
I'm speculating. Is that the reason why they have the jury go into deliberation to give the judge time to do this self-massage exercise? You said Kegels?
Yes. It's a
Are you saying
Kegel
yes,
exercise.
Kegels, or you're saying that's why they do deliberation?
Well, I'm saying yes that it's Kegels.
Okay.
Listen, I'm genuinely interested in this, and I don't mean to keep bringing it into bathroom, but we're at Kegels. For a man, is a Kegel an asshole only?
Well, it's still the pelvic floor, but the asshole is where it really you feel it, because there's a subtle. You're supposed to not be tightening completely. You're supposed to be sort of trying to lift. So if you go full tighten, then you've flexed the wrong muscle.
Well, Tom knows.
And if your testicles ache, get it checked out, folks.
If there's two things I've been paying attention to this week, besides our legal troubles, it's been people running from the cops on YouTube, and it's been Kegel exercises. They sort of go hand in hand. So if you're watching, I think it's an algorithmic thing. So if they're watching a lot of videos on YouTube of people getting arrested and fleeing from the police, then right after that it'll auto playing lower body exercises starting with the pelvic floor area.
Although a critic of music and library based podcasts might accuse this episode of hitting the pelvic floor, I would point out again, in my bailiwick of property law that almost all problems on any location are based on an unsound foundation. So you want to start from that floor, pelvic or otherwise, and build up.
Wow.
Now, if you could apply that to reinforcing male-friendly gender stereotypes, you might have a career, Master Barney, in public speaking to disenfranchised male youth for money on the internet. Have you ever considered?
I'm interested in so many different iterations of the law, but one thing that will not change is my personal mission and duty to render the highest quality legal service with fidelity to professional standards and conduct. This is why I have found myself in the city attorney's office alongside the 50-plus lawyers who represent this great city, its officials, and the thousands of city workers who strive every day to make this the finest city in the nation.
That's noble that you use this gift, such a gift you have for the good of the law and not for the detriment of society. We thank you, us three here in this room.
Absolutely.
Because you being here and you being willing to meet us at the same time we're recording the podcast, it's been so enriching for us. It's calmed my nerves. It's given me peace of mind. I'm clenching my sphincter and unclenching it right now, and it's giving me a holistic sense of balance that I didn't have before you walked into this room.
Although I'm ever hesitant to conclude a sentence with a preposition, I would like to evoke Don Draper on the television show Mad Men, because I appreciate you noticing that your tireless public servants, who again do not serve the public so much as we serve their elected officials, that we do not do it for the salaries that we are given. We do it sometimes for the love of the law itself, but mostly to bastardize Don Draper. That's what the kickbacks are for.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Well, I have to say, a crack in a human foundation is really outgrows it a beautiful artist, and I think all of us have our own foundational cracks. My father, Charlie Coco, really didn't give me any attention whatsoever, and if he had, I would have never become a singer. And I would have never, jumped the meet cute and kissed Elliot Lurie on that street corner. But with you, Mr. Lawyer Man, I did beyond, speaking of Elliot Lurie, I didn't think of him every 5 seconds because you were here to protect me. And for that, I am grateful. And it won't continue when we leave this room, and I'm sorry about that.
Well, that's moving, and if I can share my crack in my foundation as well, it'd be my ass crack. Were you setting me up to make a joke? Tom, I was being serious, and I felt compelled to make a joke.
No, you can be serious. Okay. I just felt like it would be a time.
Tom doesn't like the tension of true vulnerability. That's his crack.
Mm-hmm. That's my crack.
I think we can go on all day about the cracks in our foundations and how they apply to our legal troubles and the music we've heard today. But I think at a certain point we do have to depart and we have to figure out our issues individually, and we also have to separate and deliberate individually so that we can once again on our own comb the racks here at the San Antonio Public Library and find the CD for next month that we want to bring in and share and demonstrate for our wonderful audience who is listening right now. And in order to do that, we must do the part that pains us most. It's the goodbyes. and the thank yous and the plugs.
As your legal concierge, I do have strong advice of counsel for how to render these
Oh, please.
goodbyes and follows until such time as any confusion with another alleged podcast and certain individuals who may rise to the level of nuisances is dealt with. May I suggest that when issuing what you call colloquially plugs, you make it clear that under no circumstances should any listener of this show follow in any way the people you are about to mention.
Do not follow at Lily Holloman on Instagram. Please.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Do not follow at Diet J on all social media platforms. That would be a bad idea. Do not do it.
No, do not do it. These people have revealed themselves to be nuisances.
Do not follow the podcast's Instagram at Public Library Rocks.
Well, is that okay,
I know, I
actually?
think you can follow
can
that.
say
You
that,
can
because that's
follow
us.
that.
That's
Follow it.
actually us.
No. You don't want to follow these guys.
That's us, the real
That's us.
unofficial
I think they
docents
do. Yeah,
of
I
the
think
San
they do want us to
Antonio
follow
Public
that.
Library
Yes.
system.
Well, I'll have to.
But he might be brer rabbiting, as we say in the law biz. He might be brer rabbiting right now. Do whatever you do, don't follow Public Library Rocks, knowing that the brer foxes out in the audience are going to do just that. They're going to follow Public Library Rocks.
I appreciate that interpretation, but I was actually Little Bunny foo-fooing the audience.
You were hopping through the forest and bopping our audiences on the
That's right.
head
I,
like a bunch of field mice, like a bunch of feeble field mice.
that's right. Thank you so much, dear listener, dear feeble-minded listener, for joining us.
Also, that might be something that we discuss in a future meeting. Is maybe not calling people feeble-minded.
Thank you so much for joining us, Master Barney. Michael Barnett is his legal name, in case you want to research him or hire him.
Cannot hire the city attorney's office.
You can't.
Are you single?
You looked at Jay, or whoever this.
I can't- I
You
can't-
looked at
the
Tom.
J.U.
You looked at Tom. You
I
looked at
can't make
J.U.
eye contact with the person I'm pursuing.
I just thought that was myasthenia.
It is your esteem. That's what attracts me to you.
Wow, this has never happened on the podcast before. We've never had such a direct relationship.
Well, we've never had a guest before.
Do you think this would happen every time we brought a guest onto the program? Candy would end up asking them if they're single.
Well, Ms. Coco is a hopeful romantic. So I think that sounds pretty good.
We were discussing this before going on the air about how people have asked you whether or not you would ever have a guest on the show. And I do feel that after this recording, you're certainly one step closer to having had a guest on the show.
We have some friends and colleagues who are texting their significant others right now, furiously trying to break up. As in another text window, they're asking us if they can come on ASAP. I'm getting the text now. We've got to deal with this. We've got a whole other ball of wax to deal with now. So we'll bid you adieu. And if you ever need any guidance, if you ever need someone to talk to, we do have a back catalog of episodes you can listen to in lieu of resolving whatever maladies you. Please, folks, be responsible, be kind, and please remember, do not follow us, follow yourselves. Good night.